yeah. So I was initially thought I wanted to go into advertising quite so thought it was kind of a good way of coming up with ideas for a living. You know, I didn't really think that much of the political ramifications of it. I guess I was a bit more right wing when I was younger as well, a bit more consumerist. I was like as a child, I was fully bought into the idea that if you bought the right amount of things, that you could become that was the key to happiness. You know, and so advertising was a way of possibly like kind of making some money so I could buy all those things, and also like coming up with ideas for a living and keeping my parents happy, which was tied into the making money part. And it wasn't until I'd actually started studying it, and kind of quite far down the line of studying it, that I started to kind of realise that there's the essential part of advertising was making people feel miserable about their own lives right now, and that it was inherently unethical, that you couldn't, and that it was just kind of like a mass psychological assault on the population. And not every advert is psychologically barbed in that way, but you know, some of them are just funny or whatever. But there across the board, advertising is trying to make you buy things that you don't need, and lying to do that as well, because I don't think there's no point of making an advert unless you want to tell a lie, really, because otherwise, if goods were assessed on their own merits, you'd just be like, you'd buy the best one of something, or you'd buy the cheapest or the best value of something. Branding is a way of kind of adding value to products that doesn't exist apart from through kind of illusion, basically. Well, it was kind of in the middle of art school, I think I decided that I got kicked off the course that I was on, and I decided I was kind of going to go more into I was taken on by fine art, and I started making work in the fine art department about the kind of empty promises of consumerism, and especially in relation to like the way that children are targeted through advertising and stuff like that, which I think is kind of one of the most egregious.
Kids kicking the ball against the shop window. They're Interpol. Interpol.
Yeah, get off my lawn.
This one came to mind while you were talking.
Yes.
An advert classic for what you're just saying. Why did you get kicked off advertising?
Oh, well, it was I think it was, I was making, I think I'd started to become disillusioned by it, and then I started making my projects. I started to make in a more kind of like sarcastic. In the end, they said they weren't going to let me onto the next year of the course because my work had become uncommercial and offensive, and there was some truth to that as well. But and I did have a bit of a chip on my shoulder at that stage. But I still got a chip on my shoulder. But I think I'd realised that by following this path of like becoming an advertiser, that I was eventually, at some stage, it was inevitable that I was going to realise that it was a waste, not just a waste of my time, but like a bad use of my life, or like, and that I was going to have that inevitable midlife crisis, and and so I thought, I'll head it off at the pass. I'll have it now. So yeah, and I think I'd also come to terms with the idea that like I didn't need to live on as much money as I thought I needed. It became kind of disillusioned with the whole idea of consumerism, and that it's like, well, the idea of being an impoverished artist wasn't as daunting as it was when I first was deciding on what I wanted to do. So. But I was just going to say the advertising one. I was inspired actually by McCain's advert. Although like I've been quite angry about Domestos adverts for quite a while, because there's an implied assumption in Domestos adverts which is, if you don't buy this, you're going to murder your children. So, you know, are you a bad parent or are you a good parent? And so it's like quite a nasty angle for them to go on. But there was a McCain's oven chip advert, and it was about kind of like, the implication was that if you want to have a good family life, then you give your children McCain's chips and you sit around the table with them and you have like a kind of nice family meal, as if the brand of chips had anything to do with that situation. And it really stuck out to me. There's this thread going through a lot of adverts, which is just niggling, or like pulling at a kind of little niggling doubt inside our brains, like, am I a good parent, am I, you know, good, you know, whatever. And particularly when they're emotionally charged, as, am I going to accidentally kill my children or not? And for advertisers to work on that and to try and exploit that, I think is despicable. Really, it's really out of order. But it was when I started to become interested in this stuff, started reading about it more, and it becomes apparent that you're going to be part of this machine. You maybe kind of like come up with the hook or the line or the slogan, but that there's, or a bunch of slogans, but then those are going to be tested by psychologists who, yeah, it was only recently I actually found out that the global advertising budget worldwide is about the same as the Pentagon's budget within. It's like, so you can think of it as being a kind of a global war against, you know, you've got corporations on one side and then consumers on the other side, and it ties into class war as well. You know, it's like by extracting money from the working class and the labourers, putting it back into the shareholders' pockets. So yeah.
And you didn't want to be doing that.
Don't want to be part of it. Yeah, be conscientious objector in that war. When I did the Royal Navy kind of adverts that become a suicide bomber thing, the Sun journalist who I spoke to was like lovely, chat, you know, like on the email, and like even after the interview, she'd like wrote saying like, I just want to say it's a great project and stuff like that, and then they look at the article and it's like disgusting, filthy, you know, like all this kind of like, but they're playing, it's like they're playing a role, you know. Some of you think it'd be better for them to just ignore us, but they kind of can't help it because their readership loves being outraged, and you can see the way. If you ever have the misfortune of reading the Daily Mail, you see that all the articles are written to outrage the readership. I see kind of advertising as being a kind of horrible glue that holds it all together, like militarism and kind of neoliberalism, and you know, kind of it's the spectacle basically, you know, and like. I think that it's, for me, I mean, I guess I've become a bit obsessed about advertising as being this like focal point or whatever. So it's once you it's that thing where once you start seeing it everywhere once you've decided that that's the thing, you know. Where me and Gavin Grindon have started to work on an anti-Thatcher museum. We're like, that was kind of one of the driving forces behind that, which was. That despite kind of Thatcher's insistence that there was no alternative, you know, there always has been an alternative to kind of rapacious kind of destruction of the environment and kind of like lack of empathy for, you know, the least fortunate people in society and stuff like that. And I think it's the kind of centrist and kind of right wing idea that we've just got to be pragmatic and maybe not that like you know, we'll always have poverty or there's always be war and things like that, and I think that this just feels very self-fulfilling, that idea, you know. It's like, yes, of course there'll always be war while we're arming the planet and while we're kind of coming up with new and terrible weapons and things like this. I think I don't know if. Yeah, I think while at the same time as criticising these things, I think it is important to say, well, there are things that can be done, you know, like when it comes to kind of the military, even just small things. I mean, small steps. Like someone says, well, we'll always have a military. It's like, yeah, well, you know, maybe you have to have an army for the next 100 years or something like that, or however long. But we don't have to recruit children into it, and we don't have to be an aggressive kind of imperialist power and things like that. There's like small steps we can take that make things less terrible. So.
And you work with veterans of peace?
Yes.
Yeah, around
on the Action Man Battlefield Casualties films, and that was kind of drawing attention to the fact that you can start applying to join the British Army at 15 and 7 months, and also their I'll just show you this.
Yeah, take this home.
This is their this is the British Army's own toy range. HM Armed Forces, and this is the drone that they do, Lego drone. And this is for like...
You never made that?
No.
Just checking.
No, they beat me to it. So this is officially, like the Ministry of Defence in collaboration with a toy company. And this is for ages 5+, and, you know, there's a little kid in here, it's just last week, and his mum was saying, like, oh, he's looking at that, he really wants that. And I was explaining to her, kind of, you know, well, this is part of the recruitment strategy, and that, you know, if you can join the army when you're 15 or apply to join when you're 15 and 7 months, that's only 10 years down the line from when you first started playing with this toy. So you can see how that it's in their interests to do this, because there's a thing in neuromarketing and kind of like the psychology of advertising, in that the first time you experience a product or a brand or anything really, if you have an emotional experience when you first experience something, then it causes a long-term memory to be formed. And so brands, including, you know, the army is a brand, just like McDonald's is, those brands are quite focused on making sure that your first experience of that brand is positive. So this is all part of it, to give you kind of like... so then you have this positive long-term memory that when it comes down the line when you're an adult, to making a decision like that, you're more favourable for it. Even if you don't join the army, you still have a more favourable attitude towards it when it comes to any other aspect to it. So yeah, I think it's a really sinister way of going about it. Like, the only reason that the police have police horses is because people are scared of being trampled by them. So they can use them in crowd control situations because it's a violent thing. And it was like thinking about that in relation to, I'd found out that so the police are allowed to use CS gas on civilians, but the army's not allowed to use CS gas because it's a chemical weapon. So there's that thing where, okay, so militaries are banned from using this, but in warfare, but police can use it in peace against their own civilians. And this was kind of like with these other police ones. It was like thinking about the way that the police are there to, ostensibly there to protect us, to look after us, and then they're also the only people in society that are legally allowed to, but to like cause us mayhem and violence and stuff like this. And it's such a strange. It's such a kind of there's a cognitive dissonance there. I mean, you've got the kind of like the anarchist, you know, disband the police thing on one side, and I've never fully got on board with that. I can see some of the criticisms and like why they would say that, but at the same time, I think I'm more of a socialist myself. I think at the moment at least, I think, you know, the police need reforming rather than abolishing. But but yeah, it's kind of like it's tricky. I think there's some other things that I'm working on at the minute, which are kind of like more about kind of imperialism and kind of colonial mindsets, which it's like it's a bit more like this, like a bit more ambiguous or a bit less direct, possibly.
What sort of response do you get? You're on a very ordinary high street in South East London. What sort of response do you get? We've seen some kids reacting to.
I think they're reacting to the camera.
That's what occurred to me. I hope we haven't put you.
No, it's fine. Yeah, it's great actually. It's like because you get a lot of people coming in just being like, looking around going like, this is great, but why is it here? Or kind of.
Why is it here? Why is it this part of London?
Yes, they expect to see something like this, like kind of like up east or something like that, maybe. But just people coming in going like this, or thinking that the toys are real and wanting to buy them for their kids and stuff like that.
In a rush.
Yeah, it's like they want that thing in your window. Can you get it? Like, no, sorry. Actually, loads of the quite a few young boys come in wanting the Bloodsoakers toys. I don't know if you saw them. I have to explain to them that they don't, and it's not actually a thing. I mean, it might work. I don't know. I think it would break if you tried to use it. But yeah, no, it's really good because I think in general I've found this quite a lot throughout doing kind of exhibitions and being in the space and talking to people when I've been showing things, is that it's impossible to tell who's going to get it or like it. Someone can come in here who looks like spitting image of me, and I'll be like, oh, this person might like it, and then they like walk out straight out, or tell me that I'm a terrible person, and then some old lady will walk in and she'll go, this is brilliant, like kind of. You just can't tell, and I think that's quite instructive in terms of kind of not prejudging people for the start, but then also just that there is a wealth of kind of left-wing kind of feeling out there, that it's like it's not just kind of weirdos. There's lots of normal people who have these ideas as well.
The Corbyn effect, is that?
Yeah, I think that's got something to do with. I mean, well, I don't know. I think Corbyn's given a voice to that's already been there, which is just it's exciting. I've never. There's never been a party that I've felt drawn to, or like a kind of. That has represented me, I guess, or at least one that has got a chance of getting into government. So it's quite something.
Would you like to finish just by telling us who you are?
Yes, Darren Cullen, and my website is Spelling Mistakes Cost Lives, which is kind of a name that I do a lot of this stuff on.